The CEO and founder of Conversion and a board member of WOMMA. I'm very pleased to be here and have had the opportunity really to work with Susan Emerick and IBM, who is obviously helping lead this presentation. The two folks we have today, Susan sitting on my direct right, is dedicated to, is actually the social business enablement, it's head of social media enablement at IBM, where she has the challenge and opportunity of helping IBM become a social business and enabling social to be infused through the organization. Susan is, in terms of a background, Susan is dedicated to evolving marketing as a practice, articulating the benefits of integrating social influence programs to foster long-term growth and relationships with clients. Susan helped establish the CORE, which is the cross-functional ongoing research and engagement social marketing practice at IBM, and that's a practice that's about 3 years old and was, I think, very forward-thinking when it was launched. Joining us also is Kevin Green, who's the Vice President and Strategy of the Digital Influence Group. Kevin is responsible for developing agency brand strategy and partnering with clients to build breakthrough digital campaigns around social experiences and engagements, helps lead the B2B and B2C practices, etc. We're going to talk for about 35 minutes and leave about 10 minutes for Q&A. With that, I'm going to hand it over to the team.
Thanks, Rob. So nice to see familiar faces in the audience, some that I've seen at WOMMA's before or just met, some networking. So thanks for coming. Today I'm going to share a little bit about the work we've been leading. It's evolving over time. And one of the pinnacles of our digital strategy is that at IBM, our brand is really experienced through the IBM employee. We've seen this come across a number of times in our brand health monitor research. Consistently, our customers tell us when we're asking them, how is it that you would describe your experience with IBM? 9 times out of 10, it's always through an IBM employee, whether it's through customer service or sales rep or someone who is out speaking at a conference. We very much foster engagement of our IBM employees to ensure that we're out there as leaders and innovators and sharing what we know. And so that's just a cultural understanding and a really key component of our digital strategy at IBM. Over the past several years, we've been focusing on how do we then ensure that IBMers who are the top leading talent in terms of technology, innovation, development, actually begin to share their expertise. We began a number of years ago to evaluate early adopters and understand what they were doing. What were they doing well? What were their challenges that they experienced? How could we then put together an enablement program that could help them be successful in every exchange that they had, not only with customers online, but as well as offline. Our VP of Marketing and Communications, John Awada, is very much a great leader for this focus, so it's definitely supported from tops down, but it's also for a number of years been bottoms up, where it's been a groundswell of figuring out how we support in communities aligned to specific initiatives that are important to our business, whether it is around cloud computing or the technology behind Watson, what's running the Watson supercomputer and business analytics. We have experts across the business that have deep technical knowledge or thought leadership from a business topical perspective. And we have fostered through those individuals a culture of change to adapt to what social brings to each and every one of us and how we might enable them to share what they know. We've also experienced very much a maturity where in the beginning we saw our organization organized around tactical engagement. So years ago it started with exploration of technology, Facebook and tools and what was the latest Blue Shiny, we called it. We really had to help teams understand it wasn't about the technology. There was always going to be something new. But it was more about adapting to how you serve your customers, how you serve those business partners in the market that are really seeking to speak with an IBMer or connect with an IBMer that has either that development knowledge or the technology knowledge. So helping an organization to become adaptive in the sense that they are willing and able to adopt and learn social technologies and apply it for business value has been a transformational change in our organization. And we're now working to ensure that it's transformative. IBM is out there as a leader, showcasing our technology and becoming a social business and sharing our story of how we have groomed our culture over the last 16 years to adapt to social technologies and collaboration internally, and we're sharing that story and how we're helping our customers do that as well. So it's very much transformative. It is part of the way that we conduct our business every day, whether it's through sharing in collaboration, communities, doing online video, web conferencing, text chats. It's very much interactive, and that began a number of years ago with our globally integrated enterprise. I think I've been a mobile employee for about 15 years. So again, just transforming the way that we do business, growing the comfort level and understanding of how to adapt your everyday work life when you're a remote employee, able to work globally no matter where you sit, and be able to serve your customers and add value across that spectrum. We also needed to look at how we shift our focus, very much in a marketing communications organization as big as IBM, and even if you're in a smaller organization, you're looking at social from a campaign approach, right? We did the same thing. In the early days, we saw a lot of our marketing and communications professionals pushing content out and really lacking the engagement and development of high-value relationships. So we had to help marketing and communications individuals learn a new practice, learn the value of engagement, fostering collaborative relationships online, and making sure that there was something of value in every exchange. It wasn't just take your marketing message and push it out yet another channel, whether it be across Facebook or LinkedIn or any user group, right? It was really about fostering relationships. And then lastly, being sure that we are positioning our technical leaders, our thought leaders, and business leaders in the right places at the right time. So very carefully monitoring conversation, applying the insights from where we're monitoring those conversations, knowing where they're happening, who's engaged there, who's influential, and then applying those insights to our engagement model. It's the selection criteria of subject matter experts that we then enable to be active, ensure that they are focusing their time in the right place at the right time, and also being very effective in terms of the way that they do collaborate in those spaces and build relationships with influencers. A number of benefits of doing this has really helped us to lead, again, with the IBMer, the experts who are sought online. They're not seeking marketers like myself. They're seeking the technical experts. They want to know who's developed this technology that can answer this question for me. Who's the specialist in this particular retail RFID, whatever it might be, whatever the technology or service that we're providing, they want to speak with those who are involved in the development and leadership and innovation around that, not necessarily a marketer. You can see right through a marketer online, there's no question about it. So building that trust and credibility helps our subject matter experts really build their eminence and visibility, and being engaged there then helps the brand messaging resonate because it's coming from that technical leader. Also, it helps our audience to be much much more receptive because that's who they want to hear from. That's who they want to engage with. That is who they want collaborative relationships with. Also, our calls to actions that are aligned to our priorities in the business are much more supported if it's organized in a way that we're helping our subject matter experts talk about things that are important to the business. So we all have a very good understanding of our imperatives and our business outcomes, and we help our subject matter experts rally around those to be successful. And when we do that, it really creates a pro-IBM response from the audience. It's very positive, engaging, and we're starting to see moving from tactical to adaptive to transformative through this approach. We're also very much focused on ensuring that we're leveraging a personal reputation as much as building a brand reputation. As subject matter experts build their eminence online, they share their competency and expertise in a particular area, and it helps to support our marketing priorities. You might also be wondering, how do you do that with 400,000 IBMers? That's a really big number, and that's a global, international company. Well, one of the things about our approach is, first of all, you have to segment your workforce. Just like you think about segmenting for a target audience, the same thing is we've approached our segmentation in the sense that we have governance and policy on the very bottom, which applies to everyone. There's a self-service model within our intranet. Anyone can go there to qualify for different experiences, learning opportunities, grow in understanding how to establish them socially, and that's available to anyone. Then in the next tier up, there is an offering that we have where we've identified subject matter experts in particular areas where we do group training, community-based support, and then at the very top tier, we also have a selected few that receive a high-touch coaching and training and education support. And that is administered by a new role at IBM that we call the social business manager. They are coaches and trainers aligned to a set number of subject matter experts. They, on a day-to-day basis, are enabling them through specific actions that need support. They also are providing them access to social intelligence, so understanding of the marketplace, understanding of opportunities, key communities that are online that they should be participating in, and also influencers that they should be beginning to build relationships with. We have found in the last year that this new emerging role as a social business manager has been very instrumental in ensuring that our SMEs are successful. One of the other components of the maturity model is that increasing our SMEs' exposure over time is something that, Rome wasn't built in a day, if you will. It does definitely take a time commitment and something that is needed to be sustained over a long period of time. What we saw in our research early on was that IBM was very launch-driven. We would have 6 weeks leading up to a launch. We would launch a product, conversation would spike, and then we would see a precipitous drop. After the launch, we died on the vine. We were nowhere to be found. Well, that's most often where customers are looking for more information, looking to engage in those conversations. They've heard about a product, they want to know more, they want to talk or engage with technical leaders. So we knew we had a challenge that we had to change. And one of the really critical components is ensuring that if you go from awareness to engagement to relationship, you also see the value paradigm of driving business value over to the right. Time to establish is nothing to be ignored. And that's why there does need to be a segmentation and tiering. Not everyone is cut out for that time commitment, and not everyone possesses the same expertise that's sought. So it's very important to begin to understand how to segment and choose subject matter experts that are appropriate for that long-term established relationship, and also committed to the level of effort. Because as you go up this paradigm, moving from a very low, reactive, push type of tactical approach to a higher value, targeted based on social intelligence, personalized interaction and value exchange, that takes more time and much higher level of effort. So again, that tiering model, you really need to understand who can commit to that. How do we enable them and ensure that they're successful? So we have built, with support of Digital Influence Group, a program that we call the IBM Select Social Eminence Program. And Kevin's going to tell you a little bit more about how that works. But what it actually does, it helps us to identify and recruit those high-level subject matter experts. They have technical expertise aligned to specific go-to-market priorities that we have for the business. We help to create personalized roadmaps and engagement plans, and we also provide them personal mentoring, coaching, and training through the social business manager. One of the other components that we're working on right now is then how to measure and monitor the progress and how to report how this program is providing value back to the business. So, Kevin?
Thanks, Susan. First, I want to thank all the people in the standing room only section in the back. I appreciate it. So one of the things that we looked at about 3 years ago at Digital Influence Group was the fact that everybody was talking about this join the conversation theory. And it dawned on us that nobody had any idea who the conversation was with. So were we having a conversation with a brand? Were we having a conversation with a Facebook page? What was the value that the consumer was getting from that? And who did the consumer really want to connect with? So after working with IBM and talking with them a little bit about what their challenges were, we saw an opportunity to take a program that we developed called the Digital Influence Group Spark program and adapt it for IBM that allowed us to help focus on the customer needs through the employee. So every organization right now has employees who are participating in social media, whether they're on Facebook, Twitter, have a blog, what have you. But the thing that we need to know about employees is that they are all different. And they got into social media long before the marketing department did. And they have different interests, and they have different perspectives and goals, and they have different audiences. So while most organizations are sending out emails to everyone saying, hey, could you tweet this? Or it'd be great if you could blog about that. Well, the problem is that audience may not care one bit about what you're asking them to create. There's no value in it for them. So the return on their time investment, which you've just asked them to take, is not going to yield you any business results. So when we looked at employees, we realized, just like everyone in this room, we are all a million different people from one day to the next. And how we participate in our social profiles is very different based on who our audience is. So this is a great example of a businessman who may certainly be on Twitter and representing his brand effectively, but at night he's a professional wrestler. Inside your organization, you have somebody who is passionate about some interest outside of work, and they've built a passionate following and an audience. Those people still add value. They can be a part of your social program, but you need to figure out, how do I harness them? How do I give them the information they need? And how do I give them control so that they can tell the brand story in a way that's authentic to them, relevant to their audience, and still drives business results? So we looked at a recent Gallup leadership poll, and we looked first at training. So the first thing you have to do, obviously, is train the employees and figure out, what do they need to be doing? Where should they be participating? What do they know? What's their proficiency level? What's their overall social footprint? The reality is most organizations do not have that information. I've heard from a couple of sessions so far over the last couple of days that everybody is focused on the external advocate. How do we segment our external advocates? How do we find out who are our customers who are talking about our brand? Well, we're doing it at the expense of our greatest asset, which is our internal employees, who are automatically evangelists of the brand. And when you think about IBM, the IBMers bleed blue, and they are very passionate about the work they do. So it made perfect sense for us to take the Spark program to IBM and build it into their system and call it the IBM Select solution. So the program, the IBM Select program, is basically built using two models. So we have social profiling, which is essentially the Forrester Technographics ladder and all of the other segmentation components that are out there in the world right now. But those are all built, again, around the customer. They're around the consumer. And what they do is they bucket everyone into one thing. So you can only be a solicitor. You can only be a follower or a joiner. Those types of roles don't apply to the business. Your employees have different objectives. They have goals and tasks compared to a regular consumer who's doing it because it's an affinity-based interest of theirs versus if I do really well as an employee and I establish myself as a great advocate, this could have a career benefit for me. On the other side, we have the behavioral analysis, and we looked at a variety of different behavioral models to figure out how do we find out what our employees really are interested in. What are they passionate about? What are their current capabilities? And we looked at Myers-Briggs specifically because Myers-Briggs is the greatest representation of the fact that we are all very different. And we have very different behaviors in very different settings in very different circumstances. So we took the Myers-Briggs model and we basically created new definitions and new roles to develop what we call the social indicator type. The social indicator type is focused specifically on the employees. What are the employees' goals? Looking at an average business, and we've spent about 3 years developing this at Digital Influence Group, so working with large enterprise brands, looking at the challenges they have, and looking at what they were asking for their employees to do, asking their employees to get involved. So what we want to do is understand that and deliver basically this type of a model. There's nothing like this currently in the industry right now. But using titles like creator, distributor, solicitor, responder, some of these may be familiar, but the definition behind each of these is tailored specifically to your employee base. And it drives right back to what is their role, what are we asking them to do, how do we help them be more effective in driving business results. So I'm sure in a lot of the sessions you'll hear, heard yesterday and you'll hear tomorrow, it'll be about how do we measure ROI. And some people will say it's not possible, and we'll talk about engagement and relationships. What we've built here, and by understanding where our employees are and where they're participating, we can actually track one employee's tweet all the way back to IBM.com, have IBM's Net Insight product pick up that deliverable, that person that's coming from that one tweet, track them all the way into a potential conversion. So if you look at traditional media where you may be getting a 0.02% click-through on a paid ad, we now are going to be able to track what an entire employee base can do when they're armed with the right messaging, the right content, the right instruction, and the right guidance to drive business results. So understanding, again, IBM, 400,000 people, incredibly brilliant. Some of the smartest people in the world are working within the IBM walls. Distinguished engineers. Susan mentioned the fact that a lot of these technologists are the one that our customers really want to hear from. They don't want to hear from marketers. They don't want to hear from communications people. They have a specific problem and they need to hear from a person who has the intelligence and the background and the expertise to solve their specific problem. So we, understanding their busy schedule, developed a simple 3-step approach. 1, social business assessment takes 10 minutes. It allows us to capture where they're currently participating online, capture their current social footprint, but also understand what are their goals and desires? How do they want to represent the organization? We learned very early on that 99.9% of people do not want to promote their company on Facebook because that's a different audience. So now we are able to understand within IBM how many of them are on Twitter, how many of them are willing to use Twitter to promote the brand and to share content, and how many of them are comfortable entering into a dialogue and having a conversation with a prospect. That's information that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anywhere. Unless you're a small organization and you have the ability to go talk to every single employee, you're not going to be able to track that info. So for IBM, now we're able to capture that data up front, understand who they are, what they want to do, how they'll represent the brand, what they're comfortable doing, and make sure that we're enabling them through training and content and recommendations to improve their overall social footprint, with the end goal being to have them effectively drive leads into the system. So this is just a quick look. These are just small image is kind of hard to see, I apologize. But just a breakdown, again, first step, an assessment, very simple. But the assessment captures more social behavior. So when we started this, it was designed to understand what is your digital preference, what is your digital footprint. And what we found is this is more of a social behavior analysis. And I've been a believer of for 3 years that we were social long before media was social. So we need to get back to understanding and respecting the people's individual preferences with how they interact with each other. We need them to be authentic. We don't want to create an army of clones that are out there regurgitating the same message and sharing the same content over and over and over again, because it's going to be instantly dismissed. That is no different than 1 million impressions on a targeted website where you think your community is participating. Go to the next one. So once we understand where people are, we have to understand their proficiency level. So one of the big things we saw is a lot of people are doing generic trainings right now. So they'll gather hundreds of people into a room like this, and somebody will stand up there and they will give you Facebook 101. And we're going to tell you how should you use Facebook on behalf of your brand. The challenge is that 40% of the people in that room already know Facebook 101 and they've tuned out and you've lost them. Understanding what their proficiency level is lets us deliver custom training and custom recommendations to people based on what their skill level is. So we eliminate the needs of trying to train people who have no interest in Facebook. So in the assessment, somebody says, I'm not comfortable using Facebook on behalf of the brand. We're not going to train you on that. We're not going to deliver you that information because we don't want to change your natural behavior and have you do something, because if you're not passionate about it, you're not interested in it, and you're not going to commit to it, then we end up with what we commonly see across large organizations is countless dead Twitter accounts, dead blogs. That's a bad brand impression. We need to make sure that we eliminate that from happening and focus solely on the people who are passionate about what they're doing and give them the tools to be successful, and then optimize based on what we're learning from their activity. So the key program benefits. Certainly, like I said, most people are trying to get people into a room, training 100 people here, 100 people there. I know Dell last year was talking about training 10,000 people over the course of the year. This program allows IBM to train 10,000 people in a matter of days. And it's not a generic training, it is a custom action plan delivered to each individual that is specific to their proficiency level within social media and aligns to their goals and objectives. Once we have that information and we've trained them successfully, we now have the ability to deliver them appropriate content that they can go out and share. They can talk about it, they can use it as a way to develop a relationship. That's the primary objective here. It's not just to get the message out, it's to give the right content to the right people with the right audience, because that's going to create the conversation. If we're just sending content to everyone and they're distributing it, then we're just going to get a mass wash, and we're not going to see the return on investment that we're looking for. Deploying employees into the right destinations. So, for example, and I use this as a scenario all the time, I'm not going to go to my finance director and ask him to build a website, but I'm going to go to my developers, my designers, and have them do it. So same thing here. I'm not going to go to somebody who doesn't want to start a blog and say, hey, we just learned that IT Toolbox is really the best destination for our developers to go out and have a conversation, and they offer this blogging platform. I'd love for you to start a blog there. Well, now we know based on this assessment that this person doesn't want a blog. So we remove that person from the equation and find the right person to deploy into that network. Now, if we've got the right person in there, they're skilled in getting the content and the guidance they need to create content, essentially, do we need paid advertising on IT Toolbox anymore? Because we've proven that we can get the same impression level by deploying the right people and the right content into social communities, using the tools available to them, and using the right content. So we've decreased our media spend, we've empowered our employee base, and we've created a real relationship and a conversation between two people rather than hoping that somebody's going to click through a banner. Repeatable, customizable, measurable, one of the most important things I did mention on the ROI, using the technology that IBM has and some of the stuff that we've developed at Digital Influence Group, being able to track people all the way back into the system. And that's where IBM is such a unique case, because We can get people to the door and we can show them at IBM.com, but because IBM has such a robust analytics offering, they're able to pick that up right there at the door and now drive all that through. So what we've learned already from working with advocates is, one, we're growing social footprints of individuals by 300% in a matter of 90 days. Consistency and participation. They don't drop off after 90 days. In fact, their activity increases over 90 days. We're also finding that most of the individuals are eager to help other people. You know, they want to train and mentor other people. So this natural community is starting to form. So instead of trying to create a community where everybody comes to and I can get some training or some best practices from a forum, now we're getting people who are naturally emerging as leaders. And we're finding that 2%. So I know one of the other sessions was talking about the 2% of advocates that you need to find externally. We're going to find the 2% internally. And because of what we know about that, we're going to connect that 2% internally with the 2% externally. And now we've created a relationship among the most powerful people in the conversation in the digital space. Susan, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah. So the importance of tiering, as I talked about in that diagram, the pyramid. This approach is that top tier, that high value set, that top 2% that was described this morning. I think, was that which group? I can't remember who said that, but it was a really good statistic, because ultimately, if you can focus on that top 2% and you make sure that they're engaged in the right place, it's about that value exchange. And then it will spread from there, right? So we have been on a journey together. We're experimenting with this approach. We're starting to begin to be able to measure the impact of it. And it does definitely align to our brand values in terms of leading with IBMers, leading with forward thinkers, and ensuring that they're successful brand advocates and being able to deliver against what's important for our business and the business drivers that we're trying to achieve has been phenomenal. As far as acceptance rates, we've had subject matter experts that have been working with us on this program, refining it for a couple of years now. They have gone on to become mentors within their own brands. They have been evangelists, bringing on other technical leaders to understand the value of participating in building not only your own personal brand, but being a brand evangelist on behalf of IBM to serve their customers. We've also taken their stories and turned them into case studies to share with the employee base. It runs, we just kicked off the Digital IBMer month in April of this year, where we're showcasing leading by example, best practices, and showcasing stories of early adopters, subject matter experts who have been evangelists and building their profiles. We have one of our technical leaders in our storage brand that now is the top DeveloperWorks blogger with over 10,000 followers on DeveloperWorks. And the power of that, a technical leader like that, leading a community, being very highly engaged, and then mentoring and fostering relationships of who others aspire to be like that has been incredibly powerful. So we welcome any questions that you might have. We'll open up the floor to anyone who wants to ask about what we discussed today.